Sarah was 28, a substitute history teacher whose life was defined by the number $60,000, her crushing student loan debt. Every morning started with checking her bank account, and every night ended with a sickening feeling of perpetual regression. She lived in a small, perpetually cold studio apartment, unable to afford to turn up the heat. Her passion was Revolutionary War history, but her reality was 3 part-time jobs just to pay the minimums. One evening, as she bundled up to start a shift at the coffee shop, an unknown lawyer called. Sarah was the sole heir of a third great-uncle, Howard, she'd never met. The inheritance. An ancient, tax-delinquent house in New England. No money, just a structure about to collapse. Sarah didn't feel relief, she felt dread. This sounded like her greatest liability yet. 2 weeks later, Sarah drove to Uncle Howard's house. It was not a quaint New England cottage, it was an architectural disaster. Built sometime before 1800, the house sagged, its roof was caved in, and the windows were dark, dead eyes. The lawyer confirmed her worst fears. The tax debt and necessary repairs far exceeded the land's value. The best option was to sign over the deed to a demolition company for quick closure. Sarah's heart ached. As a historian, she couldn't simply let a building that had stood through the centuries of American history be reduced to rubble. She felt a duty, a faint whisper of history itself, demanding respect. Sarah decided that if the house was doomed, at least its contents wouldn't be. She used her meager savings for a bus ticket and a cheap set of tools. She started the brutal process of clearing the clutter, hoping to find something that explained her uncle's attachment to this ruin. The house was crammed with a century of neglect, broken furniture, dusty maps, and decaying books. It was chaos, but her teaching instincts flared. She wasn't looking for quick money, she was looking for dates, names, and clues, trying to solve the puzzle of Howard's life. Every night, though exhausted, she felt a strange sense of purpose, a small victory against the tide of her own debts. The last place left was the cellar. It was the most terrifying part of the house, cold, mold-ridden, with a dirt floor. Sarah descended the rickety steps with a flashlight. Most of the cellar held a crumbling well and rotted crates. But in the furthest, darkest corner, her beam revealed an anomaly. A section of the floor wasn't dirt, but tightly packed wooden planks, clearly hidden. Curiosity finally overcame fear. Using a crowbar, Sarah pried up the boards. Beneath them, half buried in the packed earth, lay a large, heavy, lead-gray metal strongbox. It was sealed shut and weighed a ton, suggesting a treasure, or at least a very serious secret. It took Sarah an entire day to drag the strongbox out and force the rusted hinges of the lock. When the lid finally creaked open, there was no sparkle of gold or jewelry. The chest was filled to the brim with heavy, dull, metallic plates that looked like lead or pewter molds. On top lay a brittle, tied bundle of yellowed paper written in script Sarah instantly recognized as 18th century handwriting. Her heart sank. This wasn't money. This was just heavy, antique junk. She had wasted two precious days on nothing more than old metal that she'd now have to pay to dispose of. The disappointment didn't last. Sarah's training took over. She carefully examined the papers. They were personal letters dated 1775 to 1776, the tense period just before the Declaration of Independence. The letters repeatedly mentioned a local printer and a setting of the type. Sarah slowly unrolled one of the metal plates. It was a negative printing matrix for a page of text, politically charged and dangerous enough to warrant execution. Sarah realized this wasn't junk. If these were what she suspected, they were the printing plates for one of the rarest and most incendiary political pamphlets of the American Revolution. Sarah contacted Dr. Reyes, a renowned curator of early American documents at a Boston university. She sent him photographs. Dr. Reyes's response was guarded and dripping with skepticism. Sarah, this is highly unlikely. There are hundreds of forgeries. Printing plates from that era simply do not survive. However, he was intrigued by the letters, noting they were written on the same paper stock as known rough drafts of the time. He agreed to an in-person viewing the heavy plates as a mere curiosity. Sarah, already bracing for disappointment, made the trip to Boston. She carried her potential fortune in a cheap backpack, known by no one. The authentication process at the lab took 3 agonizing hours. Experts analyzed the metal alloy, traces of ink, and, critically, the watermarks on the letter paper. Finally, Dr. Reyes returned, his usual academic cool replaced by almost reverent shock. Sarah, the letters prove your uncle was a descendant of the printer. And the plates. They're genuine. This is one of 2 known complete sets in the world. The accompanying archive makes this collection invaluable. He named a value range that private collectors and museums would be willing to pay. The sum was astronomical. It didn't just cover her debt, it made Sarah a multi-millionaire overnight. The first thing Sarah did was pay off all her student loans. The feeling of that $60,000 weight dissolving was purer than any joy the money itself could buy. She could breathe. Instead of selling the house for demolition, Sarah partnered with a historical trust. They purchased the archive for a figure more than sufficient to secure Sarah's future. With the remaining capital, Sarah meticulously restored Uncle Howard's house to its original 18th century glory. It was no longer a debt-burdened ruin. It was the house of freedom, a testament to 2 centuries of history and one unexpected twist of fate. Sarah no longer substitute taught, but she never stopped being a historian. She now works as a consultant for historical preservation projects, using her knowledge and her resources. She learned that the true value of wealth isn't what it allows you to buy, but what it enables you to do. She could finally pursue the life she always wanted, a life dedicated to history, not just debt. She often visits the old house, now a landmark. Looking at the spot in the basement where the trunk was buried, she is reminded that life's greatest treasures are often hidden beneath layers of dust, struggle, and disappointment. You just need the patience and the willingness to dig a little deeper.